Number 10, remove all obstacles. This is sort of a no-brainer for all of us, but it bears repeating because I think we sometimes get in the habit of doing it anyway. You'll notice the photograph in the slide here. Our comfort zone sometimes, again, is to protect ourselves from the audience and avoid intimacy, as we talked about earlier, at all costs. So sometimes that lectern is what we stand behind, rest our notes on it. And what it really does, it might be standing behind a lectern, standing behind a table, a desk, whatever it might be. It is a subtle barrier between us and the audience, and it prevents true intimacy with the audience. So here's what I recommend. If you need to use notes, which is fine, use the lectern as a place to rest those notes, but not to stand behind. So for instance, if I'm using a lectern, I may rest my notes there and simply go over and glance at the next bullet point on my keyword outline, so I can grab that thought and then be full up front and center with my audience and connecting with them. You really want them to be able to see your full self rather than hiding behind an obstacle. So it's just that reminder to all of us, remove anything that prevents intimacy with the audience. Number 11, don't make excuses or signal a tell. How many of you have ever played poker, right? What's a tell in poker? It's when you raise an eyebrow, or you blink in a funny way, or you do something subtly with your facial expression or body language that signals the kind of hand you have to your other players. Well, it's the same thing that we can do sometimes when we present. When we get nervous, we sometimes make excuses. So we begin a presentation by saying, well, this isn't going to be really great because I haven't had a lot of time to prepare, but here goes anyway. I got this assignment late last night, so I'm going to give it my best shot. Those are examples of giving your audience a tell. You might even say to your audience, I'm really nervous about giving presentations, but here goes. All of those things may be true, but we don't want to signal that to our audience. Why? Because it makes them feel uncomfortable. When I say to you, boy, I'm really nervous about giving this presentation, but here goes anyway, you're compassionate human beings and you're nervous for me. You're going to try to take care of me and you're saying, boy, I hope Mary Pat gets through this, right? One of the things we never want to do is make our audiences feel that they have to take care of us. So don't signal a tell. Even if you are nervous, fake it until you make it. Comfort and confidence are key. So what we always want to do, even if we feel some of those nerves, go back to your SOP, visualize, affirm, breathe, so that you don't signal a tell and your audience sees you as comfortable and confident. Number 12, hit it and quit it. How many of you consider yourselves ramblers? You start out making your point, but then you go on and on and on and on. We all do it, right? And I think the primary reason we do it, again, is nerves. We're uncomfortable with silence, so we tend to make our point, but because we don't want to pause and have a moment of silence, and if the audience isn't reacting, we start talking and rambling and giving people information or content that really isn't pertinent to what we're talking about. So I want you to think about hit it and quit it. This is a key, for instance, in media training. When I'm doing media training, I tell, when there's a question that comes from the interviewer, answer it and stop, because we get in trouble when we keep going on. So make your point and then move on. Avoid rambling or adding additional thoughts that don't add value. Talk more about fewer things rather than talking too little about many things. We tend to overload our presentations with so much content. I recently got a presentation from a client who was getting ready to do a 30-minute presentation. They sent me 72 slides that they were planning on covering in 30 minutes. Way, way, way too much. And they were going to try to cram in all that content, talk super fast, and leave their audience dizzy trying to digest all of that content. So what I did instead is worked with them to go from 72 slides to 20 slides for a 30-minute presentation. Talk more about fewer things, because that's ultimately about being in service of your audience. Because if you're always thinking about your audience, you're thinking, how much can they really digest in 30 minutes? And rather than trying to give them 72 slides of content, you're thinking 20 slides is enough. So make a point, move on, talk more about fewer things. Our last best practice is seek opportunities and get continual feedback. A lot of times I find that business professionals don't have the luxury of getting consistent and continual feedback when they're making presentations. Because a lot of times by the time a client comes to me and I ask them, what do you think you do well? What are some of the things you want to work on? A lot of times they say, I don't know, I've never really gotten feedback. So what I want you to do is to make sure that first of all, you raise your hand for opportunities to present. The only way I know to get better is to present more. So the next time your business leader or manager says, hey, I need somebody to make this presentation for a client, raise your hand and say, I'm in. And practice, practice, practice. Even if it's at your church or community organization, practice, again, makes presence. Also, get feedback after every presentation. So whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, before a presentation, talk to a colleague and say, you know what, I'm working on becoming more confident in my presentations. I'm working on creating more vocal variety. I tend to have a monotone. I'm working on integrating more pauses into my presentation. Can you listen to my presentation and just take some notes about what I'm doing well and suggestions for improvement? Those two things, more practice opportunities and getting continual feedback for improvement, will help you reach that mastery level. So as we wrap up today, I want you to create an action plan for today. So we started out talking about, all of the best practices in the realm of OnPoint presentations. We've talked about 13 best practices and a few other things. So I want you to think now about, as you digest all of this information, what is one thing that you've recognized in this on-demand presentation that if you started doing today, it would dramatically improve the way you present? One thing to start doing. One thing to stop doing. What have you recognized in this presentation that, boy, yeah, that's something I tend to do and I want to stop, I want to get rid of it. Pitch it out. And finally, what's one thing that you've recognized in this session that you already do really well and you want to continue doing? So take a moment now to think about, what do you want to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing. Create an action plan for yourself today. Once again, my name is Mary Pat Varga. I've been delighted to share this time with you today to look at how you can improve your presentations and make them on-point presentations to better inform, engage, influence, and activate your audiences. Good luck and wishing you great presentations.